Hey guys, it's YB. Welcome back to editing school. I haven't done these in a while, so it's good to be back. So today we are going to compare two of the hardest videos to edit at Try Guys, also their biggest shows, Phoning It In versus Without a Recipe. I've done so many Without a Recipe behind the scenes over the years, so I'm sure you guys are familiar with the way I edit. I've also done a couple of Phoning It In behind the scenes. Now Phoning It In and Without a Recipe are very similar yet very different. They're both cooking shows with some experts coming in and the Try Guys as chefs making mistakes and building something together, but the format is very different. In Phoning It In, the Try Guys are in the kitchen and the experts are on the phone phoning in the recipes to them. We have two contestants and two experts. They're in separate rooms, but they are working at the same time with each other. And at the end of the cooking, the experts are the ones getting judged, not the contestants. The contestants this time are on the phone with the experts while they're getting judged to make any funny comments that they're gonna repeat. Now in Without a Recipe, we have 4 contestants at once who are cooking without a recipe. So we cut back between 2 and 2, and then we have a separate expert who is explaining how to do the actual dish that they're making. And at the end, the 4 contestants as the same are getting judged. So this is how the formats are different in Phoning It In versus Without a Recipe. And as their editor, I will show you guys how we edit them differently. So there's gonna be 3 key things we're gonna compare today. First is the timeline. We're gonna compare the edit timelines, both the editing timeline visually and also the edit timeline, like how many days were given to edit these shows. Number 2, I'm gonna go over how I pull selects for each of the shows. Pulling selects is before we start the edit, we go over all the footage and then we decide which one to use. That's called pulling selects. That usually takes 3 to 4 days. So we're gonna compare how we do that for each show. Number 3, the last one is building the cut. So we're gonna separate this into 3 subcategories. I'm gonna show you how we make the intro, how we build the cooking, and then finally how we make the judging. So let's dive in. Okay, so first let's compare the timelines. This is an episode that already came out a few months ago. It's also on YouTube, so you can watch it there. So this is my Phoning It In timeline. Usually Phoning It In episodes range from 35 to 45 minutes. So this is in that range, 36 minutes long, and this is how the timeline looks like. Now let's look at my Without a Recipe timeline. This is one I just edited, so it's not out yet, so I cannot show you guys all the footage in there yet, but I can show you the timeline. This is how the Without a Recipe timeline looks like, and we are at 1 hour and 2 minutes. So this is a bit longer. Without a Recipe episodes usually range from 45 to 55 minutes, but some go over an hour, and this was one of the case. So this is over an hour, while Phoning It In was only 36 minutes. Phoning It In tends to be shorter in the full episode than Without a Recipe. Now let's talk edit days. How many days are we given to edit these shows? For Phoning It In, we are given around 18 days. So since we work 5 days a week, that is about 3 to 4 weeks, right? Like almost a month, but not quite. And then for Without a Recipe, we're given 20 to 21 days. So that is a full month. So it is a few days longer than Phoning It In. Of course, for either episodes, if we need more time, we are given more time, but that's usually around the time we're given to edit these shows. Now, you guys know my favorite part of editing is to make the timeline look pretty and colorful and all organized. So let's dive in a little bit deeper on each timeline. This is the Phoning It In full timeline. Here, just from the colors, you can see how the edit is done. So this little part is the intro, and this part from here to here is cooking. Then this part at the end is judging. For the Phoning It In cooking section, you're seeing that we're intercutting between the 2 colors quite a lot here. So it's pink and blue, and these are usually the 2 contestants that are cooking. So we have one expert phoning it in to one of the contestants, that is pink, and we have another expert phoning it in to another contestant, which is blue. So we just cut back and forth between them, and then we have this little section in yellow or another color that will be when the experts drop out, when the phone call is done, and it's just the 2 contestants in the room cooking with each other. The end is just all judging, so it's all one color. Now for Without a Recipe, you can see that it's similar but different. For the judging, it's the same, right? At the end there's judging, then there's some intro, but what's different is in the middle. Instead of cutting between 2 colors, if you zoom in here, we're mainly cutting between 3 colors, right? There's the green, there's the blue, but then there's this mango color. And that's because in Without a Recipe, we're intercutting the expert explaining how to do it between the 2 cooking. So in this particular episode, the blue is Keith and Ryan cooking, and then green is Zach and Garrett cooking. And then in the middle, we're showing Monique, who is the expert, showing how to make the dish that they're making. So that's why in Without a Recipe, the timeline looks a bit different than Phoning It In. So now that we went over the timeline and edit times for both shows, let's go over pooling selects. So for Phoning It In, this is how we're first given the project. So this is all divided by the interview. This is the interview of Monique, interview of Ryan, interview of Nini. Then here's a challenge. There's multiple cameras, as you can see, all stacked. Then there is judging, then some green screen shots of each contestant right here. For the cooking, we have 8 cameras total. So we have the top downs for each of them. Then we have one expert on the phone, the other expert on the phone, the wide shot of the experts on the phone, one contestant, the other contestant, and then finally the wide shot of the contestant. So we have 8 cameras total for this. So we nest everything and organize it, color code it, and then pull select. So this is how my selects timeline looks like. Here I pulled selects for all the pre-thought interviews of the 2 contestants and the chefs. And then you guys might remember this from my previous Phoning It In behind the scenes, but I actually duplicate the cooking sequence 3 times. So this, and this are all the same footage, just duplicated 3 times and color differently. Why? Because I'm gonna divide them by who is talking to who and then intercut them together. For example, in this blue one, this is only for Keith and Nini because Nini was the one phoning it in to Keith. So I have muted Ryan, Monique's audio, and for the selects, we're only showing Keith and Nini. That's what we're focusing on. Similarly, in this pink one, we're only showing Ryan and Monique. So I have muted Keith and Nini here, and we're only pulling selects for these 2. And finally, at the end, when the experts are out of the coins and done talking, we're only focusing here on Keith and Ryan. That's why that's the yellow. And the experts are muted. This is just Keith and Ryan that are online right now, and we're just focusing on them. So that's why we duplicate the cooking sequence 3 times. So even though the footage itself is shorter, the pulling selects actually take longer because we have to make this 3 times and then pull selects. And then for the judging, it's a bit complicated in Phoning It In as well, because in the judging room, we have the 2 judges and then the experts who are getting judged, but who are not in the room are actually Keith and Ryan, the contestants. So they're in another room watching the screen and then telling the experts what to say. So here I kind of had to pull selects twice again to focus on what they were saying and then what the judges in the room were saying. So all that combined, pulling selects for Phoning It In is a bit more complicated than Without a Recipe. Now let's go over to Without a Recipe. So this is how we're given the project for Without a Recipe. You can also see that there's a ton of cameras. So here we only have 6 cameras compared to the 8 cameras in Phoning It In. So we have a top down of one contestant, top down of the other contestant, close-up of one contestant, close-up of the other contestant. We have just a close-up camera that floats around. And then we have the wide. So we're not cutting back to anyone in the phone booth or in another room in this case, so we just have those 6 cameras. Now let's look at how the selects were pulled for Without a Recipe. Pulling selects for Without a Recipe is a lot easier, a lot more streamlined because you don't have to duplicate anything. So you just pull selects for pre-thoughts, then pull selects for cooking. So we have this blue section, which is Keith and Ryan cooking. Then we have the green section of Garrick and Zach cooking. These were divided into 2 because there were 2 parts cooking, one day making the dough, the second day making the filling, something like that. So that's why there's just more footage, but we don't have to duplicate anything. You just pull selects as you go. And then we have the judging. Again, there is no hidden room or anything. This is just the judges and the contestants in one room. So I don't have to duplicate anything. I don't have to mute anyone. I can just pull selects as I go here. Pulling selects, I would say Without a Recipe is way easier than Phoning It In. Alright, now lastly, I'm gonna go over how we build a cut for both shows. For both shows, we have a dedicated intro with voiceovers. So we usually write out a script before. For Phoning It In, it follows a specific music. We have a song that we always play. So we just cut to the music, show all the experts and the chefs, and then we show the best moments from the episode. So usually the most laughable moments, the funniest visual moments, and then we put them together as a cold open. And then we end with one of the funniest moments where the music cuts out, and then we have the intro come in. Without a Recipe is also very similar, except that we use a different song for the intro every time. We have one song that I picked over here and a combination of the funniest moments from the episodes. I can't show you yet because this episode is not out yet, but you can tell these are just funny moments from the cooking, and then we have the intro come in. Now after the intro, both shows are pretty similar, as in they have voiceovers down here that kind of leads us into the show. We have introductions of each characters, and then we go into the cooking. For Phoning It In cooking, like I explained explained earlier, we're intercutting from the 2 contestants and then the 2 experts on the phone. I put the 2 sections separately, so the blue part and the pink part, and then I edit them by itself. So I'll put these together, edit them, and then I start puzzling them together back and forth from each other. For Without a Recipe, I do a similar thing. I separate this green section that is Garrick and Zach, and then this blue section which is Ryan and Keith, and then I edit them together so it looks like this. Now for phoning it in, it's a bit easier to edit once the selects are pulled because I just have to put them all together. I edit the blue section, I edit the pink section, and then I put them together. For Without a Recipe, however, not only do we have to make sure that the 2 teams that are cooking are aligned, so for example, if Keith is selecting his flour, Zach also has to be working with flour, and that's also the time that Monique has to be talking about flour. So all of these have to align and the order has to go in the correct way for the Without a Recipe edits to work. So a lot of times we end up changing the order and it gets a bit complicated putting it together so that everyone is doing one section at a time. I think I gave a pretty good example in the previous behind the scenes. And for Keith, he made mustard. This was not in the beginning of the cooking at all, but I put it right here so that all the sauces were grouped together. Now for judging, phoning it in judging is way shorter because we're only judging 2 dishes. We have the 2 experts that come out, while in Without a Recipe, you have 4 contestants, so 4 dishes that need to be judged. However, phoning it in judging can be a little more complicated in regards to audio because you can see right here, a lot of them have to be muted and unmuted back and forth because not only do we have the judging room right here, but we also have the 2 contestants from another room feeding them information. They're on the phone this time with the experts telling them what to say or discussing something among each other. So we end up actually muting and unmuting a lot of them because if you played them all together, it would sound crazy because they're talking while they're talking and they're not in the same room together. So judging and phoning it in is a bit more complicated to edit together, but also shorter. So there's pros and cons. For Without a Recipe, even though the judging is a bit longer, as you can see, judging takes almost half the episode, but it's a lot easier to edit because we're just going 1 contestant at a time and they're all in the same room. And then at the end, we have the reveal, so we go over who won, but we start from the 4th place to 1st place, so it's a bit longer again. While in phoning it in, you're only judging between 2 dishes, so it's a really quick announcement of who's the winner and who's the loser. So that was it. That was the comparison between Try Guys phoning it in versus Without a Recipe, how we edit it, how long it takes, how we break it down. I hope you guys found this information helpful. And as you could see, Without a Recipe is in edit right now. You guys will probably see it in a few months and I'm really excited for it to come out. So let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments below, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye!